Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about what the first 3 rounds of fantasy football drafts should look like in 2024 fantasy football. We're going to be going in depth through picks 1 all the way up until pick 36, and I will explain why I believe each player will be selected at each slot. Now, these top 36 players, or the first 3 rounds in a 12-team league, aren't necessarily based just upon my rankings. It's based upon ADP and how I feel as though drafts are going to go when you get to them in late August or early September, doing your home league, your work league, or your college league draft. So before we could get on into things here, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below while you're down there. Whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So up at the 1.01, the 101, to me, this is a crystal clear pick, and that is going to be Christian McCaffrey in a majority of leagues. Now, there are going to be some leagues where maybe CeeDee Lamb or even Tyreek Hill come off the board at the 101, but I think the consensus is going to be Christian McCaffrey, despite the fact that Christian McCaffrey has gotten 1 year older, right? And everyone starts to worry about running backs once they get a little bit older. I don't really think the fall off the edge of a cliff for Christian McCaffrey is coming anytime soon. This is the best all-around running back, in my opinion, in the National Football League, on an offense with one of the best rushing schemes in the NFL. The team just signed him to a fat contract extension. The 49ers heavily believe in Christian McCaffrey, and I am going to heavily believe in Christian McCaffrey. Yet again, he's my number 1 running back. He is my number 1 overall pick. At number 2, now if I was the number 2 overall pick, personally, I would be going with Tyreek Hill, but I do think in most leagues, CeeDee Lamb will be the first wide receiver off of the board. He was the number 1 receiver in fantasy football last season. Now, entering into the NFL draft, I, along with many, thought that the Dallas Cowboys would end up trying to draft another wide receiver, add another weapon outside of CeeDee Lamb as well as Brandon Cooks, but that does not end up happening. So I think we are going to see the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott force feed the ball down the throat of CeeDee Lamb. I think that CeeDee Lamb has an incredibly safe projection this season on the Dallas Cowboys because, again, they don't really have a bunch of weapons that are going to be siphoning targets away from CeeDee Lamb. I think the Dallas Cowboys offense is going to be great yet again. During the regular season, I rely and believe heavily in Dak Prescott, so I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to have yet another chef's kiss Manufreak season in 2024. At number 3, we have Tyreek Hill. Again, the debate between Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb, it's very close to me. Again, I would lean with Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill should have been the wide receiver 1 last season, but he did end up getting hurt up against the Titans, missing that game up against the New York Jumbo Jets. And then when he did return, he didn't really look the same. He didn't have that same burst that we've came accustomed to with Tyreek Hill. Now, I definitely do believe that the Dolphins are going to look to integrate Jalen Waddle even more than we saw last season, right? The Dolphins backed up the Brinks truck and gave Mr. Waddle a fat paycheck, but when push comes to shove, when the game is on the line, when the backs are against the wall, you know who the ball is going to, and that is Tyreek Hill. He looked amazing in Miami last year. I genuinely believe if he did not end up getting hurt, he would have eclipsed over 2,000 receiving yards. I think he could do that yet again in 2024. I am very excited about this Miami Dolphins offense, the 3rd year with Tua and Mike McDaniel. I think that the Dolphins are going to perform in a great way this year, and I think that Tyreek Hill is going to finish as the wide receiver 1, but again, there's definitely a debate there, and I do think CD will go ahead of Tyreek in most drafts. Now, this is where the draft really opens up, because you could either go running back or wide receiver here. There is no need to draft a tight end in the first round. There's no need to draft a quarterback, so it's either going to be running back or wide receiver. Personally, I think a lot of leagues are going to lean into the running back position. Now, we do know that fantasy football drafts nowadays are a lot more wide receiver heavy compared to years past, right? Back in just a couple years ago, you would see running backs dominate the first round 50 Shades of Grey style, whereas now it is majority wide receivers, but still, I think players are going to be debating between guys like Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown here, but ultimately, I think they will go running back with either Bijan Robinson or Breece Hall. Now, I do have Breece Hall ranked one spot ahead of Bijan Robinson, but with how much this team is getting on their knees, given the Gawk Gawk 9000 special to Bijan Robinson, I expect him to see a shit ton of touches this season. There's talks about how they are going to utilize him like Christian McCaffrey, and if that is the case, Bijan Robinson could easily overtake Christian McCaffrey as the running back number one. Bijan Robinson did disappoint last year in Atlanta, despite the fact that he was a super high fantasy football draft pick as well as a super high NFL draft pick. But when push comes to shove, you just have to understand that that was an offense that was set up for disaster. They didn't have a real quarterback. Their coach, Arthur Smith, was a straight up dumbass. So now I think things are pointing up with Kirk Cousins, the new head coach. I think it is wheels up for a huge season out of Bijan Robinson, where he could potentially finish as the running back number one. Next up, we're going to go with another running back, because again, while I think some of the leagues with the more non-casual players, the people that are watching fantasy videos in June, they might lean for the Ja'Marr Chase, the Jefferson, the Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think a lot of leagues are going to go back into the well and draft another running back. Now, despite the fact that the New York Jumbo Jets season imploded when Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, he was the Achilles heel for the Jets. Once that injury happened, 0.7 seconds into the season, everything went wrong. Garrett Wilson was just down astronomical, but somehow Breece Hall was able to survive all of that. And Breece Hall had a fantastic situation a fantastic season in the worst situation possible. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know for sure that Aaron Rodgers is going to bounce back and be the best quarterback, a top 10, top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. I think that would be delusional coming off the Achilles, but I do know that even after the injury, he's going to be better than Trevor Siemian or the MILF hunter Zach Wilson. So I think that Breece Hall is in much better hands in 2024. After that, I think we start to see a run at the wide receiver position, and the first wide receiver I think is going to come off the board is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. Now, if it's up to me, I am personally going to go with Justin Jefferson, who would be my 107 here, who I think people are going to take after Ja'Marr Chase. And the reason why I think people are going to lean with Ja'Marr Chase over Justin Jefferson is because Ja'Marr Chase's quarterback is Joe Shiesty. It's Joe Burrow, right? Whereas Justin Jefferson's quarterback is either Sam fucking Darnold or going to be JJ McCarthy, two quarterbacks that a majority of people don't trust at all. Ja'Marr Chase linked to Joe Burrow, who many believe is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, whereas Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy would be considered entering into the season bottom of the barrel quarterbacks, and I think that is going to sway people towards Ja'Marr Chase. I personally am not going to sit here and panic about either Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy, because I think Justin Jefferson is just that good that it's not really going to matter, but some people will be swayed closer to Ja'Marr Chase. T. Higgins returning, I actually think is helpful for Ja'Marr Chase. I think that a lot of people are going to panic because they thought that maybe Ja'Marr Chase was just going to be fed way more targets than he was actually going to, because T. Higgins will be gone, but T. Higgins signs the franchise tag. He'll be back with the team. Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson, to me, it's a coin flip between the two, but I definitely do lean with Justin Jefferson. But again, Ja'Marr Chase is also one of the best wide receivers. You could make the argument that he is the best receiver in the NFL. At number 8, we are going to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown, another guy that they backed up the Brinks truck for. The Lions gave this man a humongous contract. Amon-Ra St. Brown has proven to us essentially ever since he popped up onto the scene for fantasy football when he was a hot ticket waiver wire ad a couple of years ago. He has just been on fire ever since. There's been no sign of slowing down for Mr. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I understand that there's a lot of people giving the Gawk Gawk 9000 special to Jameson Williams. There's a lot of hype for Jameson Williams, and rightfully so, right? Because it's going to be his first year actually with the team in the off-season process. And while I do like to bang the drum for Jameson Williams, we all know who the head of the table is, the head honcho in this wide receiver core, and his name is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff is incredibly accurate when throwing to Amon-Ra St. Brown, despite the fact that people just love dragging Jared Goff's name through the mud. So I feel very confident in Amon-Ra St. Brown. He could lead the league in targets, and it wouldn't be a shock to me at all. He feels like one of the safest picks inside the first round. Feels like wrapping a condom, a Trojan, a latex over your fantasy football team. At number 9, this is the first pick where I really disagree with it. But again, I think this is how drafts are going to go based upon a sample size of drafts I've done on Underdog, the mock drafts that I've done as well. Things point to Amon-Ra St. Brown. After him coming AJ Brown, the other Brown, right? And it scares me. And what scares me about AJ Brown is what happens if the team pushes even further towards running the ball because they now have Saquon Barkley. I think that's going to potentially hurt AJ Brown's red zone usage. What happens if Devontae Smith kind of gets a fire lit under his ass and maybe he gets some extra targets that we didn't see last season? Then I think we end up being a little bit disappointed about AJ Brown. When I say these things, though, I'm talking about how I think his upside could be limited. Even if Saquon is stealing some red zone opportunities, even if Devontae Smith is still getting more usage, AJ Brown is still atop the cream of the crop at the wide receiver position. He's on one of the best teams in the National Football League, so he is going to be fine. All I am saying is that at the 109, it feels a little bit gross, but again, that's where I've really been seeing him go. At the 110, we are going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I am a huge Jahmyr Gibbs truther. I like David Montgomery, but I think the second year in Detroit is where Dan Campbell and friends are going to push Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs to get more touches. Now, I don't think on the goal line they're going to switch from using David Montgomery to using Jahmyr Gibbs, but I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be given a lot more opportunity to touch the ball throughout the games than he was given in his rookie season. And if David Montgomery was to go down, knock on wood, there is a legitimate argument to be had that based upon the skill set that Jahmyr Gibbs has, based upon the breakaway speed that he has, that you could argue that if something was to happen to David Montgomery, he could be the number 1 running back in fantasy football. But I am not going to just throw that out there that I think that it's a guarantee that David Montgomery gets hurt, because that is far from a guarantee. Even if David Montgomery stays healthy, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to see an increase in workload. He is on an offense that I am ecstatic about this season. It is hard for me to talk negatively about Jahmyr Gibbs. His workload to start off the season might potentially be suspect, but again, I really do think in his second year, they are going to be giving him a lot more opportunities to touch the rock. So I think he's a fine first-round pick, but personally, if I was taking a running back at the 10th overall pick, I would go with Saquon Barkley. We're going to be talking about him in a little bit. At number 11, we got Puka Nacua. Now, I would personally take Puka Nacua over AJ Brown. Now, Cooper Kupp last year came into the season injured, wasn't necessarily the best, and Puka Nacua shined bright like a diamond, right? Puka Nacua in his rookie year absolutely demolished defenses. Puka Nacua was seeing so many targets without Cooper Kupp, and then Cooper Kupp shows up, and he essentially does the exact same thing. Now, despite the fact that Matthew Stafford's ADP is not inside the top 12, not even inside the top 18, I don't think, or at least the top 16 off the top of my head at the quarterback position, Matthew Stafford is still a very reliable quarterback, still a very sufficient quarterback for a guy like Puka Nacua. I think that Puka Nacua is going to get peppered with targets yet again. I think he is going to out-target Cooper Kupp, and while they have Kyron Williams, they have Blake Corum, a solid tandem at the running back position. I still think when push comes to shove, Puka is going to be the number 1 receiver on this team. And while a lot of people are fading him because they don't think he's going to be as efficient as last year, they don't think he's going to see as many targets, I think that's a whole bunch of bullshit. I'm not going to say bull crap. At the end of the day, I still trust Puka Nacua. My eyes do not deceive me. What I saw last season is one of the best receivers in the National Football League, and I genuinely believe that. To close out the first round, we are going to select Saquon Saquon Barkley. Now, some people will take Jonathan Taylor above him. Some people will even take Jahmyr Gibbs above him, but I completely disagree with that. Again, we talked about the run-heavy nature of the Philadelphia Eagles when we talked about A.J. Brown. Last year, DeAndre Swift was struggling at points in the season. He was riding the fucking struggle bus. And Saquon Barkley, again, he wasn't great in New York last year. Nick, did you watch the games last year? Well, guess what? Going from the New York Giants offense that we saw last season with Daniel Jones and Tommy fucking DeVito, Tyrod Taylor, going from that to the Philadelphia Eagles is going to change the man's life. The Giants offense last year was straight up limp dick, and the Philadelphia Eagles offense is off some Viagra, off some Cialis, rock hard. I really believe that Saquon Barkley could score 15 plus touchdowns this season, but Nick, Jalen Hurts' tush push is going to vulture him. Sure, it is possible that it happens a couple of times, but I think without Kelsey, they're not going to look to tush push as much. They brought in Saquon for a reason. I think Saquon is going to be a beast, and Saquon also very solid at catching passes. At number 13, we got Jonathan Taylor, so the first pick of the second round. Now, Jonathan Taylor last year would have been a bust, but you didn't really have to draft him at a price to where if he did end up being a bust, you were all that disappointed. We already knew that if you drafted him last season, you were taking a huge risk because of all of the debate with Jonathan Taylor. Are they going to trade him? Is he going to be on the Colts? Is he going to sit out all season? What's going to happen? That was a huge debate entering into fantasy football drafts, and that made his draft stock plummet in a huge way. Despite the fact that Jonathan Taylor on paper is one of the best running backs in the National Football League, despite the fact that just a couple of years ago, this guy was the best, in my opinion, running back in the National Football League, we're going to get nervous about him because, Anthony Richardson, this, that, and the other thing. I think Anthony Richardson helps him. I think this offense is going to go into high gear this season. I really think people are genuinely forgetting just how amazing this guy was in 2021. I understand injury-riddled 2022, 2023 does hurt him in some way, but if he is able to stay healthy, he could arguably be the running back one in fantasy football. At pick number 14, we have Garrett Wilson. Now, on paper, Garrett Wilson was a bust of huge magnitude in 2024 or 2023. It was like the fucking nuclear missile that we dropped on Hiroshima. Devastating, right? Devastating if you drafted Garrett Wilson. The second that Aaron Rodgers went down, everything went wrong. Garrett Wilson just was not good without Aaron Rodgers. But now Rodgers should be healthy. Garrett Wilson on paper is an amazing NFL wide receiver. The problem is the quarterback play has been dragging this guy down to the deep depths of hell. So I really do believe that in 2024, if Rodgers is able to stay healthy, Wilson is going to have that huge breakout year, even if Rodgers isn't amazing. I just hope Rodgers can stay healthy. At number 15, we got Maserati Marv. Now, to me, Marvin Harrison, I think, might end up being a first rounder by the time we get into late August, early September when you guys are doing your fantasy football drafts. But right now, the reason why he's going at the start of the second, the middle of the second round in a lot of drafts is because people are nervous to draft a rookie wide receiver this high. Despite the fact that we have seen rookie wide receivers recently demolish in fantasy football, people are still nervous because they've never seen him play in the NFL. Nick, despite the fact that out of The Ohio State University, this guy was dealing out back shots, game in and game out to defenses, despite the fact that on tape, this guy looks beyond NFL ready, despite the fact that Kyler Murray is a very competent NFL quarterback, we just can't put trust in Maserati Marv. I get why some people might worry, and that's just because he is a rookie. That is the only reason. When I say something about Marvin Harrison, when I really talk him up highly, the only rebuttal is he's a rookie. Okay, so miss out on Marvin Harrison Jr., take someone else. But personally, I'm going to take that rookie that I think could lead the NFL in targets. I really think that Maserati Marv's tape shows us that he'll be successful at the NFL level, and I think he is in a great situation in Arizona to get so many targets. Besides Marvin Harrison, the second best guy to catch the ball is Trey McBride, their tight end. At number 16, the 2.4, we are going to go with Chris Olave. Now, I do think, depending on the prognosis of the injury on Kyren Williams, that's going to change a lot of things. If Kyren Williams, it comes out, oh, Kyren Williams is going to be good to go for week number 1, that he looks fully healthy, there's nothing to worry about, then Kyren Williams could easily go right here. He might even go where Jonathan Taylor goes. But right now, I would not be touching Kyren Williams with a 10-foot pole when there are still so many great wide receivers available. Now, I've been someone that is kind of a Chris Olave detractor because I think that Derek Carr simply does not have it. I understand that there's some hype out of camp. Oh my God. Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler? Are you fucking kidding me? Spencer Rattler is not going to come save this situation. Derek Carr is a check down merchant. Alvin Kamara might fuck around and get 15 targets in a game this season because of how much of a check down merchant Derek Carr is. I love Chris Olave. I loved him coming out of college. I liked his landing spot in New Orleans. The team just botched it when they gave Derek Carr the fat contract. Chris Olave and Derek Carr didn't have any chemistry last season. There was times where Chris Olave would be butt naked, wide open. There wouldn't be anyone within a school zone of Chris Olave, and the ball would fucking hit him in the back of the head or hit him in the helmet instead of throwing it anywhere near his hands. It was embarrassing. It was so bad, and maybe they worked on it in the offseason. I get why you would draft Chris Olave here because he's that good. But the situation is a real detractor for me to where I don't think I'm going to have a lot of Chris Olave where he is going off the board. And that is pretty much pick 16, 17, 18 in a lot of drafts. So next up, we are going to go ahead and select Davante Adams. Now, Davante Adams feels like a very safe selection in the second round, but it feels like a very unsexy selection. And what I mean by that is that Davante Adams, to me, is not going to win you your league, right? There is a way where Derek Carr works out and Chris Olave ends up really smashing due to how good he is. I think Davante Adams is still good, but with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell in a pretty run-heavy offense, I just can't really paint the picture of a season where Davante Adams ends up as that top 3, top 5 wide receiver. And when you're drafting a wide receiver in the second round, you kind of want to see that, right? I could see Marvin Harrison doing that. I could see Aaron Rodgers staying healthy, getting back to form, and Garrett Wilson smashing. I could see Derek Carr magically getting it together, and somehow Chris Olave does it. Even though I'm a little bit nervous about him, if I'm being honest with you, I would rather take the safe shot on Davante Adams over Chris Olave. That's just how I feel. On a run-heavy offense with Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, I just don't see Davante Adams breaking fantasy football, being that league winner. I think he's fine, but I just don't see it being like at the end of the season, you're like, oh, I'm so happy that I drafted Davante Adams. I just don't really see that being the case. At our 18, we got a guy that I'm taking over both Chris Olave and Davante Adams, and that is going to be Drizzy Drake London. Now, I know if you look at Drake London's career in the National Football League, his short career, you are going to see stats that aren't the best. Now, if you actually watch the tape, you will see points where Drake London looks really solid. He has some big catches, or even points where there is really no one around him, or to where if the pass was not wobbling like some ass at the club coming his way, then he probably would have had a good game, but that just really never was the case. The quarterback play sunk the battleship of Drake London. The question is, will Kirk Cousins be productive enough? And Kirk Cousins is also coming off of an injury, right? But I'm not too worried about that. I think that Drake London has the skills to pay the bills. He just hasn't been given enough opportunity to actually do that. And also his head coach being Arthur Smith, who we've already clowned on multiple times in this video, didn't help either. So I think in a new situation, that the same team, but a new situation in Atlanta, new quarterback, I think things are going to be a lot better for Drake London this season. And I'm fine taking him in the middle of the second round at the 2.7, pick number 19. We're going to go with Devin Devin A-Chain of the Miami Dolphins. This is another guy that people are scared of drafting, and I know, Nick, you're a Dolphins fan. That's why you really like, Devin A-Chain so much. Well, guess what? I talked up Raheem Mostert last year, paid off. Talked about A-Chain last year, paid off. So it seems like I know a thing or two about the Miami Dolphins. Now, Devin A-Chain is as explosive as it gets. This man is a Modern Warfare 2 ACR with the noob tube, the thumper, a fucking RPG explosion. This man could get 7 or 8 yards of carry with ease. With ease, it doesn't even look like he did anything. It's like when SpongeBob does the thing where he like runs around the world. He's like, hey, you want to see me do it again? Want to see me do it again? Right? Where he's just running so fast, allegedly. Right? That is Devin A-Chain. He is that quick. Problem is, oh, they still have Mostert. They drafted Jalen Wright. He's not going to get enough touches. Just like Jahmyr Gibbs, I don't think these guys need McCaffrey workloads to be successful. Devin A-Chain, I think, is the less safe prediction than Jahmyr Gibbs because I think that they're really going to push up Jahmyr Gibbs, whereas Raheem Mostert is still competent enough to where Raheem Mostert might be able to fend off Devin A-Chain for one more season. That's just the negative, right? The devil versus the angel on my shoulder. But I'm leaning more with the angel over here, right? I'm like fucking Patchy the Pirate with a bird on my shoulder, right? I'm listening to that bird. I'm listening to the voices in my head, and I'm leaning with Devin A-Chain. I think this is a Dolphins team that is going to be taking deuces on the chest of opponents all season long. I am ecstatic to see Devin A-Chain in a much bigger role. I think he's going to get a bigger cut of the pie this season. And I think the Dolphins are going to be great yet again in the regular season. Hopefully we can get one playoff win my whole lifetime. But that said, I really do think Devin A-Chain is a fine pick in the second round. And I am genuinely very excited about him. Sure, maybe the consistency won't be as high as a guy like Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Paul Bijan, McCaffrey, but this guy has those 30-plus point performances in him, the week winning performances, being the sole reason why you win, putting the team on his back. Darren Sharper, hold my dick. At number 20, we got Brandon Ayuk. Now, I'm a Brandon Ayuk stan this season. There's a little bit of a rumor coming out right now about how Brandon Ayuk might end up leaving the 49ers and go with his friend Mike Tomlin. If you look up a picture, I made this joke a couple videos ago. So, Nick, I've already heard this joke. Well, if you didn't watch that video, look up a picture of Mike Tomlin. Look up a picture of Brandon Ayuk. It literally looks like Mike Tomlin is Brandon Ayuk's dad. I'm not even kidding. But Brandon Ayuk, great Father's Day present for Mike Tomlin, right? But Brandon Ayuk, to me, is one of the most efficient receivers in the National Football League. His efficiency stats will tell you that. Are the targets going to be exorbitant? Are the targets going to be hefty? Like the paper towel brand? I'm not sure, right? But what I do know is he's going to out-target Debo. And what I do know is that the 49ers are going to be a great offense yet again. So I want pieces of that. I want the most reliable piece, and that's Ayuk. Does Ayuk have the 30-plus point games in him? Maybe, but we know Debo's kind of the spike week king, right? Debo will be taking a nap like Snorlax. He'll be passed out in the back of a train like Joshua Block, World of T-shirts. And then the next week, he's on top of the world like King Kong on top of the Empire State Building. And he's back down bad again. Then he's great. Then he's down bad. Amazing, 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 right? Whereas Ayuk is that consistency, but he also, and I kind of yelled when I said consistency, so I apologize, but he's that consistency while also having the upside of the 49ers offense. So I think towards the end of the second round, Brandon Ayuk feels like a very safe pick in my opinion. Before we get on into the rest of this draft, though, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below while you're down there. Whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure to leave a like on today's video. And also, make sure you guys check out Underdog Fantasy, link in the video description if you guys want to be getting in real drafts. You can do real drafts right now for money. You can claim your special pick plus up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious or by clicking in the link in the video description. Again, claim your special pick plus up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious. We're going to be doing Underdog best ball drafts all summer long on the channel, live streamed. So going on my bachelor party to Viva Las Vegas next Thursday. Once I return to start off July, I want to start ripping those on stream. So make sure you guys stay tuned for those. I know a lot of people requested those. And if you want to get some reps in before you draft with me and you're new, make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description. So after Brandon Ayuk is where I think people might start considering a quarterback. Now, personally, I'm more of the type that likes to wait on the quarterback until, to me, the third round is when it would really start to creep up on me, where it starts telling me like, hey, I kind of want to draft a quarterback. Like the itch starts coming, right? In the second round, not so much. But I do think with the second round being kind of as suspect as a whole as it is, right? With the second round feeling a lot grosser than years prior, I think more people are going to be feel acceptable to take Josh Allen. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Nick, Josh Allen doesn't have Stephon Diggs anymore, you idiots. I know. But guess what? They have other receivers that are competent enough. I'm not going to sit here and fondle the balls of Keon Coleman. I'm not going to sit here and dick ride, metaphorically, Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakira. Oh, baby, want to talk like that? Right, I'm not going to do that. But I like Dalton Kincaid, and I think Josh Allen's going to run more because the wide receiver position is a lot more up in the air. So while I think I'd probably take Jalen Hurts over Josh Allen in basically every single draft I've done thus far, Josh Allen is the first quarterback off of the board. Again, it might feel worse with Diggs not being there, but I still think the rushing upside alone makes him worthy of being the first quarterback selected. After that, we're to go with Nico Collins. Now, Nico Collins is someone that I've heard a variety of opinions on. It seems like no one is in the middle, like Malcolm, right? Everyone is either with me, just banging the drum for Nico Collins, saying like, hey, I told you about Nico Collins last year, which I did, and oh, even with Diggs there, I'm not too worried. I really think that Nico Collins is the wide receiver one on this team. I think that CJ Stroud is going to be able to have all three of these guys be solid performance, but I still think Nico Collins is the guy. I think Nico Collins is going to be the highest scorer. I think he's going to be a top 12, top 10 receiver, right? You're with me. There's really no one in the middle. Either you're with me or you think that Stephon Diggs is going to make this offense completely different. They think Diggs is going to be sucking in targets like his name was Kirby, and they think that things are not going to go well for Nico Collins. My argument for Nico Collins is I think the Texans are going to be an amazing offense yet again. I believe that Nico Collins will be the number one target on this team, and I think while maybe some of the consistency might be lost because of Diggs joining the team, the upside is just so high. Dalton Schultz really isn't the most elite tight end either, so I don't think that really pushes away so many targets to him. So I'm still excited about Nico Collins. I think he'll be the number one target on the Texans. Maybe I get talked out of this as the offseason goes along because it seems like more people disagree with me than agree with me. But even if you disagree with me, I still think a lot of people feel fine drafting him in the second round. And something I should have mentioned, if you are looking at the screen right now and you're like, Nick, no one would draft Bijan Robinson and then draft a quarterback. We're just talking about how I feel the draft will go, not necessarily how I feel the teams will draft. So I hope you get the point. Right? I'm not saying the team with Breece Hall should draft Ayuk, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about kind of the order of picks, not necessarily the team composition, right? Like, I think if you start your draft, 2 running backs, double hero running back in 2024, definitely possible to succeed, but it does feel a little bit gross because of how many more receivers are coming off the board. And then like the 3rd, 4th round, the running backs feel a lot better in a lot of situations than the receivers. So number 23, we're going with Magic Mike Evans. Now, Mike Evans is a guy that I haven't seen come off the board in the second a ton, but I think people are going to start steaming back up to him. This is a guy that has had 10 straight seasons of over 1,000 receiving yards. He is a guy that has printed 10-plus touchdown seasons multiple times. Surefire, first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He did it with Jameis. He did it with Brady. He's done it with Baker. And I think he's going to do it again with Baker yet again in 2024. This is a guy that has been the definition of consistency. If you don't want to rank him in the top 12, that's fine. I'm not ranking him in the top 12. But I do think based upon how wide receiver heavy drafts have been, Mike Evans should be considered at the end of the second round. If you don't like him at the end of the second round, he might be there at the beginning of the third round. To close out the second round, we're going to select Jalen Hurts here. Now, my argument for Jalen Hurts over Josh Allen goes as follows. I trust A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley more than I trust Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid. So I really like Dalton Kincaid. Again, Josh Allen could easily outperform Hurts. They are both top 3 quarterbacks in my opinion, top 2. I just have it flipped, Hurts over Allen. I do genuinely believe that Hurts will not get as many push touchdowns this year, but I still think he's going to get dump off touchdowns to Saquon. He's going to be throwing in touchdowns, running in touchdowns as well. he feels pretty safe at the quarterback position. We know how overpowered rushing quarterbacks are in fantasy football in 2024. The only thing that has Josh Allen ahead of him in this video is because the majority of drafts I've done, Allen has gone ahead of Jalen Hurts. The third round opens with Sam Laporta. So unlike in prior seasons, you no longer have to take a tight end in the first round. Now, in some leagues where Josh Allen comes off the board right there at the 2.9, that's where people might start looking tight end. But I've seen the tight end fall into the third round in a lot of drafts, and that's how we are going to have things going. There's a debate to me between Sam Laporta or Travis Kelce. The thing that gives Sam Laporta the upper edge is that Sam Laporta is just significantly younger. We saw him produce last year. Again, I'm very high on the Detroit Lions offense. I'm also very high on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Shocking, right? I'm a big fan of the team that has won 2 fucking Super Bowls in a row, Nick. Real hot take, right? And I get Travis Kelce's getting a little bit older. That's what pushes me towards Laporta. But again, it's like splitting hairs. I think Kelce could easily finish as the tight end number 1, just like I think Sam Laporta can. I am wanting to invest into this Lions offensive attack. I still believe in Laporta's target consumption. I understand, again, people are really sucking up to JMO, but I still think Laporta is that guy. I still think he's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I told you guys to draft him last year when he was essentially free early on in fantasy football drafts. His ADP kept rising and rising and rising. I'm fine drafting him here in the third round, sometimes even in the second round. At 26, this is when the free fall has to stop here. We have to stop the metaphorical bleeding on Kyren Williams, because even with the potential negatives that come with Kyren Williams, the injury, right? There is a very clear issue. This guy has an injury that held him out of the early parts of the summer process with the LA Rams. Now, if when the next stage starts, July, I believe, not sure exactly when in July, but somewhere beginning of the middle of July, and he's there, then people are going to move Kyren Williams from the third to the second round. They might even move him to the beginning of the second round. There's a clear injury risk regardless, though, even if he's healthy by then, because this guy has a laundry list of injury history, right? He is a CVS receipt. He is a Declaration of Independence length of injury history. Now, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, right? I am not a doctor. I am not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that most players are injury prone, because I don't think they are. But I think there is reason to believe that Kyren might be injury prone. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Kyren's going to be a bust, because I think Kyren's going to still get a lot of usage. I think they're going to use Blake Corum more than what the other running backs behind Kyren were they were switching in and out last season. I think that Blake Corum is the clear number 2, and I think that they're going to use him more than they use those other guys, the mix and match behind Kyren last year. But I still think Kyren's pretty reliable. When he's healthy, he's really good. Let's just hope he can stay healthy. Now, I would personally take this next running back, the next player off the board, over Kyren Williams, but that's just because I think people are tripping on Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry feels like one of the safest projections in fantasy football. You mean to tell me that Gus Edwards rushed for 12 plus touchdowns last season, and now you get Derrick Henry, one of the best running backs in the NFL, one of the best run schemes in the NFL, with one of the most run-heavy teams in the NFL, and you think Derrick Henry is not going to produce? The only thing I've seen that why people are nervous is he's getting older. He's going to get hurt, right? He's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt. That's all I've heard. No one has been able to tell me, and Derrick Henry didn't get hurt last season, but no one's been able to tell me, like, oh, Derrick Henry's not going to be able to succeed in Baltimore because this is not a good situation, or Derrick Henry's fallen off, because if you watch the fucking games last season, Derrick Henry hasn't fallen off. The only issue with Derrick Henry is that the Tennessee Titans were getting spit roasted all of last season. They were getting tag teamed, Eiffel Towered over by other teams, and then they have to pull Derrick Henry out. They have to put Tajay Spears in. Whereas in Baltimore, they're going to be running up the score. They're going to be dancing in the end zone, right? They're going to hit the fucking Macarena in the end zone. They're going to do the cha-cha slide in the end zone, right? Derrick Henry feels so safe in the third round. I would take him over Kyren Williams a million times, and twice on Sunday. I'm always taking Derrick Henry over Kyren, but ADP tells us that Kyren's going to go ahead of Derrick Henry, at least as of right now. Next up, we got Mr. Swift, Taylor Swift's boy toy, Travis Kelce. Now, Travis Kelce just got another contract upgrade, a contract extension, and I get it, Nick. Oh my God, Travis Kelce's getting a little bit old. Travis Kelce entered last season hurt. He was not the same guy. And then towards the end of last season, when he wasn't hurt, he was putting up the old Travis Kelce numbers. Now, if you drafted Travis Kelce at the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th pick, where he was going in a lot of leagues in the mid to late first round, you would have felt betrayed, right? Like that old school song from Little Xan, right? You would have felt betrayed. You would have felt like you got done dirty. That's because you drafted him in the first round. Now you're getting the potential tight end number 1. I think if you simulate the season, half the time it's Kelce, half the time it's Laporta. Now maybe that's untrue because I think there's this chance that McBride, Kincaid, Pitts, or maybe even George Kittle could do it. But again, I think more than likely it's going to be Kelce or Laporta. Nick, they added Hollywood Brown and they drafted Xavier Worthy. Cool. You want to know who's getting the ball in the red zone? Kelce. You want to know who's getting the ball when the game is on the line, deaf beam pointed at earth? I want Iguodala. I want Travis Kelce. That's who Mahomes, Kermit the Frog is throwing the fucking ball to. Kelce. Stop overthinking Travis Kelce. Another very safe protection in the 3rd round. Next up, we got Wiki, DJ Moore. This is another guy that I'm seeing a lot of people be so nervous about drafting. Nick, despite the fact that Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent weren't really good last season, and despite the fact that DJ Moore is really good, even though the quarterback play wasn't really good, I can't draft DJ Moore because of, oh man, Caleb Williams. He kind of seems like a pussy. Don't you think he's a little fruity, Nick? Sure. He was crying with his mom. Paints his nails. Guess what he does? He lays the pipe to defenses. You know what he does? He is one of the best quarterback prospects we have seen in a long time. You know what he is going to do? He is going to be better than Tyson Bagent and Justin Fields. Nick, they added Keenan Allen. I get it. They drafted Rome Odunze. But this is going to still be DJ Moore's receiver room. He is going to be the alpha receiver. He showed us he could do it last season. Now, it was in spurts. There were some down games because the quarterback play was dog shit. But I think we're going to see a lot more safety out of DJ Moore this season because the quarterback play won't be terrible. At number 30, we got Michael Pittman. Now, Michael Pittman, I've seen so many takes on this guy, and it's kind of like DJ Moore, except for where I kind of really feel alone with the like of DJ Moore for some reason. Seems like people really hate Michael Pittman Jr. Now, I get it. The Colts are going to be more run-heavy than you would like if you have Michael Pittman. And I get they drafted A.D. Mitchell. They've got Joshua Downs. And they have Michael Pittman. But we saw Michael Pittman really propel himself up last season and solidify himself as the wide receiver 1 on the team. Now, I fully understand that Michael Pittman's best games really were with Gardner Minshew. But now people are just going to pretend that it was the same sample size, right? It was like, 8 games with Gardner, 8 games with Richardson. He was way better with Gardner than with Richardson. Let's be super scared of Pittman. It wasn't that. It was like 4 fucking games with Richardson and the rest with Gardner. So maybe they develop more chemistry in the offseason. I think it's very possible. And I still think that Pittman wipes his ass with these other receivers on the team. So while I'm a lot more confident in Pittman than others, I still think the 3rd round, the middle of the 3rd round, feels very acceptable for him. I think if you draft him like the 2nd round, you're a little bit crazy. Moving now to pick 31. And that is going to be the 3.7. My main man, Jalen Waddle away. Waddle. So the very next day, bum. Now again, we have been talking up the Dolphins this whole video. We have been. I love the Dolphins. I'm a Dolphins fan, but I'm ready to tell you guys when the Dolphins are bad or when I think that a pick is wrong. Now, if you're a new subscriber, shout out to you. I love you just as much as the old subscribers. I love you all. I love you even if you aren't subscribed to the video. But what I will to the channel. But what I will tell you is that when the Dolphins were getting absolutely fucking cream pied every single game, I was telling you guys, hey, maybe don't draft these players. But once the Dolphins got Mike McDaniel, I said, hey, the Dolphins are going to be better. Let's draft them. That's what I did. I turned my opinion. I changed my opinion. I know Jalen Waddle didn't live up to expectations last year, but Jalen Waddle, prior to last season, was a very consistent player. Now, I get one of those seasons was without Tyreek Hill as a rookie when Tua was he was just fucking throwing him the ball. He would be quadruple covered. The whole defense, all 11, would be on Jalen Waddle. And because there were so many bums on the Dolphins, Tua would just throw it to him. Right? Whereas now they have Tyreek. But I think they're going to look to integrate Waddle more. They paid him a lot of money, so they're just going to have to. I think that Waddle is still one of the best receivers in the NFL. I think on a lot of teams, he's the wide receiver one. The problem here is the Dolphins have Tyreek Hill. So that shoots Waddle down the rankings, right? It has to. So he's not a first-round pick. And that was really good. He's not a second-round pick. The middle of the third-round pick. That feels A-okay to me. After that, we are going to hop back into the quarterback swing of things. I want to go with Lamar Jackson. Now, some people will take Patrick Mahomes, and I actually think that Patrick Mahomes' kind of projection this year is a lot safer than last year, right? Last year, we have Sky Moore and rookie Rashee Rice. How's he going to be, right? We didn't know he was going to be that good. Ooh, we've got Kadarius Toney. And then we have Kelsey, right? We have like the knight in shining armor, Kelsey, and then some guys that are really unproven. Now we have Mahomes with Hollywood, who no one's going to fucking sit here. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that Hollywood's like one of the best receivers in the NFL. Competent. We've seen him be competent before. They have Rashee Rice, who might be doing the jailhouse rock. Ooh. Like, you know, he might be suspended for a couple of games, maybe 8 games, maybe 10 games, maybe no games. At this point, the fact that he hasn't been suspended tells me that maybe he won't get suspended at all. But what I will tell you is that Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, again, while I don't necessarily love all of those players, and I think that Xavier Worthy is more of that high upside piece, the guy that, like, every once in a while, Gabe Davis, like, on Buffalo, where he does nothing, and then he's, like, 3 catches, fucking 3 touchdowns, 150 yards, right? I think that's kind of what Xavier Worthy is. But that's a much better wide receiver room than what Mahomes entered into with last season. Mahomes was still the best quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. If you watch him play, he's the best. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Mia Malkova, I think that this year it's much easier to see a better projection for Mahomes, where Mahomes definitely failed at ADP last season, which is why a lot of the time when a guy like Mahomes is coming off the board as the quarterback 1, I kind of just avoid the quarterback 1 and take the shot on the quarterback 2, the quarterback 3. So I will lean with Lamar Jackson over Patrick Mahomes. Who do I think is the better quarterback? The answer is Mahomes over Lamar Jackson. But who do I think is better for fantasy? I think the guy that could run for 100+ yards in any given game and maybe 2 touchdowns in any given game is better. I understand that Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, right? Like, that's a decent receiver core, but it's not as good as the Chiefs receiver room. But the rushing upside is what takes Lamar Jackson over the top. And that is genuinely one of the funniest things about fantasy football. Because despite the fact that Mahomes is unanimously, everyone, even Mahomes haters, will tell you Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, right? They'll tell you that. But he's not necessarily the best for fantasy football because rushing quarterbacks are just absolutely overpowered. At number 33 here, the 3.9, we are going to go with Travis Etienne. Now, I disagree with this bigly. Huge, right? I fully disagree with this statement. I think there are a lot of other running backs that should be considered over Etienne. Jacobs and Pacheco especially. And while I say that, though, I don't think Etienne's a bad pick. I would just rather have those guys over him. We saw that Etienne his value kind of took a fucking nosedive, a kerplunk into the water after Lawrence suffered that injury. Right? Kind of when the Jaguars just had that collapse, right? They're like the number 1 team, and then they fall off, and then the Dolphins become the number 1 team, and then the Dolphins just, for some reason, fucking start playing like Stevie Wonder, and then we suck, and then it makes me cry myself to sleep at night. But what I'll tell you is that if Lawrence is able to stay healthy, I think Etienne feels pretty safe. He's going to get a lot of targets. I know they want to use Tank Bigsby more, but Ned Bigsby's brother didn't look too good last year. Maybe he has a second year kind of upturn, but based on what I saw last year, and as a Tank Bigsby supporter, as a Tank Bigsby advocate last season, that didn't really work. Next up, we got Debo, and I don't want to draft Debo Samuel, but at some point, my hate kind of has to stop, right? At the end of the 3rd round, you can consider taking Debo Samuel. The spike weeks alone are why you would do that. Now, if Brandon Ayuk gets fucking traded, everything I said about Debo Samuel, we're going to X out, right? We are going to fucking throw up the Wakanda X, right? Des Bryant X, and say Nick was lying, right? I was lying. We love Debo. Because then Debo's the unanimous, undisputed wide receiver 1 of the San Francisco 49ers, right? But he's not with Ayuk there. They have Kittle, they have McCaffrey. Debo was really good in 2021 because McCaffrey wasn't there. Once McCaffrey started taking the runs away, then Debo Samuel started to be more of a runny receiver for fantasy, and not because he was running the ball more, he wasn't, but because he was having those spots, right? He'd have that big game, and another big game, and He'd be down bad, down bad, down bad. Big game, big game. Very boomer bust. Is more acceptable as we get deeper in the draft. But like, there's people taking him in like the second round. Hell no to that. Next up, we got DK Metcalf. Another guy I'm not really touching. Pause. I like Metcalf. The guy, I talked about this so many times. DK Metcalf is essentially built like a Greek god, right? DK Metcalf is made in that lab where that one anime, Dragon Ball Z, not Dragon Ball Z, it was some other thing. I think it's Dragon Ball Z. I'm so bad with the character names. I used to play all the video games on the PS2, though. I loved those when I was younger. Shout out to anyone that played those games. Those were so fun. But one of the characters might be Goku. It could be Vegeta. Again, I don't know too much about... I almost said I don't know too much about Naruto. That would have really pissed some people off. I don't really know too much about Dragon Ball Z, but there's like a gif of him in like the fucking tank, like he's Harry Osborn in Spider-Man 2, the video game, and he's like built in like a lab, really. Like they save his life, they build him in the lab. Like DK was built like a Greek god. He's built like one of those statues. Yeah, he really is, except for we're going to make a joke there about DK Metcalf's meat size. I have no idea how big his meat is, but I know it's probably bigger, no diddy, than those statues. Because those statues have some real little peckers. I saw one of them in Florida. That guy was not packing. He would not have been satisfying his wife. So DK Metcalf, amazing. Fast as fuck, built like a Greek god, catches anything thrown to him. Problem is, the team's going to use JSN more, and Lockett is still there. And Geno Smith might have just been a one-year wonder. I'm not going to sit here and write Geno Smith off, but what I'm going to tell you is that I know the team wants to use JSN more. They're going to still use Lockett. They're going to run with Walker. I'm not taking fucking DK Metcalf in the third round, but people will. To close out the third round, we are going to go with Isaiah Pacheco. Now, Isaiah Pacheco, to me, I don't know what people are thinking. I don't know, because Pacheco, to me, looked so good last year once they really committed to him catching more passes, once they really pushed all the cards in towards Pacheco. Jerick McKinnon probably not coming back, so they're going to use Pacheco and catching passes. From the end of last season through the Super Bowl, when they used Pacheco like a workhorse running back, we saw that this is a guy that can put up 20-plus points in any given game, and he's on the Kansas City Chiefs, an offense that is going to score a lot of points. And Nick, you've said there's going to be a lot of offenses that are going to score a lot of points. There's going to be some offenses that aren't scoring any points, right? There's going to be some downright dog shit offenses. Patriots off the top of my head. Right? There's going to be some teams that are terrible. But the Chiefs aren't going to be one. Chiefs are going to be really good. Shocker, right? The Chiefs, really good. So, Pacheco, I like what I saw at the end of last season. I liked him entering into last season. But when they really started throwing the ball to him, his production went through the fucking roof. And I think we're going to see that a lot more this season. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comment section if you guys agree or you disagree. Do you think this is how the first 3 rounds of fantasy football drafts will go? Or do you think they're going to go differently? Let me know down below in the comment section. Again, I tried to base this more off of ADP. I mixed my opinion in as well. So if you guys did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you guys leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Make sure you check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.